The morning sun rose gently over the Lemhi Valley, painting the mountains in gold and amber hues. The air was cool, filled with the soft hum of life in the Shoshone village. Women sat together, grinding roots and herbs while sharing quiet laughter. Children ran barefoot along the riverbank, skipping stones and chasing each other through the grass. Men prepared for the day's hunt, sharpening spears and checking their bows. Smoke from the cooking fires curled lazily into the blue sky, carrying the scent of roasted fish and wild herbs. In the middle of this calm, young Sacagawea moved with joy and curiosity. Her world was small but full of wonder, the rustle of the wind through the tall grass, the rhythm of drums in the distance, and the stories her elders told of brave ancestors and sacred lands. The tribe lived in harmony with nature, taking only what they needed and giving thanks for every gift the earth provided. It was a time of peace, a fragile balance between man and the wild. Sacagawea's laughter blended with the songs of the river, her spirit untouched by fear or loss. Yet, beyond the valley, shadows were already gathering, unseen riders moving across the plains, their intentions unknown. The Lemhi Valley, so full of life and warmth, had no warning of what was to come. For Sacagawea, this day would be remembered as the last dawn of innocence before her life changed forever. The afternoon sun hung low over the valley, and the Shoshone village carried on with its daily rhythm. Children's laughter echoed near the river, and the soft beating of drums signaled the hunter's return. Sacagawea sat by the water, her reflection dancing in the ripples, when a sudden stillness swept across the land. The birds fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then, faintly at first, came a sound that didn't belong, the distant thud of hooves, rhythmic and fast, like thunder rolling from beyond the hills. She looked up, confused, her young heart quickening. Others began to notice too. The elders stepped outside their tents, shading their eyes toward the horizon. The air carried something else now, a strange tension, mixed with the faint scent of smoke. The hunters exchanged uneasy glances, gripping their weapons instinctively. Mothers called their children closer, sensing that something was wrong. Sacagawea's eyes searched the distant ridges, but she saw only dust rising against the sunset. The sound of hooves grew louder, echoing through the valley like a warning drumbeat. Fear crept slowly through the village, though no one yet dared to speak it aloud. It was as if nature itself was whispering danger. For the first time, Sacagawea felt the weight of silence, heavy, watchful, and filled with dread. She couldn't understand what was coming, only that peace was slipping away. The valley that had always felt safe now held its breath, waiting for the storm to break. The peace of the Lemhi Valley shattered in an instant. A cry tore through the air, followed by the thunder of horses as riders surged over the hilltops. Spears glinted in the fading light, and smoke began to rise as the attackers charged toward the Shoshone village. Panic spread like wildfire. Women screamed, clutching their children. Men rushed to grab their bows, shouting orders as chaos erupted around them. The calm rhythm of daily life vanished beneath the roar of battle. Sacagawea froze for a heartbeat, unable to make sense of the noise and fire. Then her instincts took over. She grabbed her younger brother's hand and ran through the maze of burning tents, the air thick with smoke and fear. Arrows hissed past them. The ground trembled under the hooves of charging horses. All around her, she saw faces twisted in terror, friends, family, and neighbors scattering in every direction. Flames consumed the homes that had once been filled with laughter. The sound of crackling fire mixed with cries for help, echoing through the valley. Sacagawea's eyes stung with tears, both from the smoke and from the realization that her world was falling apart. She tried to keep running, but the path ahead was blocked by chaos, warriors clashing, tents collapsing, people fleeing toward the river. Her heart pounded, desperate to find safety, but there was none. The land that had once been her home was now a battlefield, and in that moment, her childhood ended forever. The night sky burned with orange light as the village fell into chaos. Smoke rolled across the valley, and the air was filled with the cries of the wounded and the clash of weapons. Sacagawea stumbled through the darkness, clutching her brother's hand tightly. Her lungs ached from the smoke, and her heart raced with fear. Everywhere she turned, there was fire and confusion. She could hear her mother's voice somewhere in the distance, calling her name, and then it was gone, swallowed by the noise of battle. Suddenly, the ground shook beneath her feet. A warrior on horseback appeared out of the smoke, his face painted for war. Before she could run, a strong arm reached down and grabbed her. She screamed and fought, kicking and clawing, but he pulled her up onto the horse. Her brother's small hand slipped from hers as the horse reared and galloped away. The sound of his voice calling her name faded behind her, lost to the night. The village grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. Tears streamed down her face as the cold wind whipped through her hair. She looked back one last time, all she could see were flames rising into the sky. Everything she knew, everyone she loved, was gone in a single night. In that terrible silence between the hoofbeats, Sacagawea realized she was being taken far from home. The familiar mountains that had always protected her were now only shadows behind her. Her life as a free child of the Shoshone had ended, and a new, unknown journey had begun. Days passed since the raid, but to Sacagawea it felt like one long, endless night. The captives moved slowly across the plains, guarded by warriors from the enemy tribe. The once green valleys of her home were far behind, replaced by dry grasslands and open skies that seemed to stretch forever. The sun was harsh and unrelenting, burning her skin as she walked barefoot over the rough earth. Every step took her farther away from the mountains she had loved, from the laughter of her people, from the life that had been stolen in an instant. She was exhausted, hungry, and frightened, but she refused to cry. The other captives walked silently, their faces blank with despair. At night, they slept under the stars, surrounded by strangers who spoke a language she barely understood. Sometimes she gazed toward the western horizon, where the distant peaks of her homeland shimmered faintly in the evening light. It was the only comfort she had left, a reminder that somewhere, beyond the miles of wilderness, her people might still be alive. Sacagawea was no longer a carefree child. The fire that had destroyed her village had also kindled something inside her, a quiet strength, a will to survive. Though she did not yet know it, this journey would shape her destiny. Each mile she walked was a step toward the woman she would become, the guide, the mother, the legend. And even as the world around her changed, the spirit of the mountains stayed within her heart. The camera follows young Sacagawea as the captives continue walking across the endless plain. The sky burns orange as the sun sets behind the mountains, her homeland fading in the distance. Her small feet bleed, but she does not stop. For the first time, she looks back only once, and then forward again, her eyes steady, silent, and full of fire. The narration begins softly. That night, the girl who once played by the river was gone. What remained was a spirit unbroken, one that would one day guide men across a continent. In the heart of a stolen child, destiny had begun to awaken. Music swells, a haunting flute and soft drumbeat. The scene fades to black with the text on screen. To be continued, the captive's journey.